Listen, I'm not really sure if anyone's going to actually read this, and whether they're going to believe me or not. I have to tell someone, anyone. I feel like I'm going crazy, but I know I'm not, and since I just recently moved, I have no one close by that I can trust to talk to about this without them thinking I'm totally insane. I'd call my mom, but she has enough on her plate right now. I don't need her to get worried. I don't even know if she would believe me, to be honest. And the last thing I need is her to think I've lost it in the new city I'm calling home all alone. So, I guess I'll just start at the beginning. I left my hometown for the big city. No shiny special reason for why, really. I finished school. I've been applying to jobs left and right. Managed to get an interview via video call for an above entry-level position in my field. I guess I nailed it, because within a week I'd gotten the offer. I was packing up what little I had in my parents' old dingy minivan and hopping onto the interstate. I moved into a new apartment in an older but more affordable area of the city. Got settled in for the first month with establishing a new routine and learning my way around my new job. By the second month, I was at ease enough to start branching out and exploring more. Found a nice bar by my work that I began to frequent once a week with a quick drink. Found a local market by my apartment that I started to go to on the weekends for fresh produce. And I joined a nearby gym that boasted quality equipment and being open extra late at night for the busy 9-to-5ers like myself. It's a pretty nice gym, don't get me wrong. The equipment's well maintained and fairly new, and they recently remodeled the locker room. I had absolutely no issue, really, until 4 nights ago, when I decided to go relax in the whirlpool after a particularly grueling session. I soaked for a while, enjoying the jets and the hot water, thinking about nothing in particular, and then hopped out and headed for the locker room, passing by a set of doors I hadn't paid any attention to when I'd entered. I'm still learning the place, so I was unsurprisingly curious, and took a quick peek. One door led to the gym's sauna. The other led to a steam room. I've sat in a sauna before. My old gym had one that I tried a few times. It was nice enough, I suppose. This gym sauna was packed to the max capacity when I looked in, and I made a mental note to check in another time for it. I redirected my gaze to the steam room door and tried to peer inside with no luck. Steam billowed all around inside, and I could barely make out the shape of another gym member sitting on the bench in the room. The steam seemed to distort the figure at times, though I couldn't really focus well on it. I thought about having a quick rinse and going inside to check it out. I'd never sat in a steam room before, and it wasn't nearly as packed as the sauna was. But I was kind of tired already, and still had to shower and eat dinner, so I decided I'd come back the next evening and try it out. I really wish I'd just done the damn sauna instead. Next night, I came back and decided I'd do my workout first before trying out the steam room. I told myself it'd be a nice way to unwind after some good exercise and something to look forward to while I sweat my butt off. Work had run a little late, so I arrived a little later than usual at the gym and found it much emptier than it usually was, which I honestly appreciated. I did my usual routine, made my way to the locker room for a quick rinse, and then threw on a swimsuit and headed out towards the set of doors I'd passed the night prior. I took another peek into the sauna, and there were a few people in there. Not as many as there had been the other night, but still enough that I felt more solidified in my choice of trying out the steam room, which, from what I could see, looked empty. I remember feeling relieved almost, seeing that no one was inside. I could have this first-time experience all to myself, and enjoy a quiet moment of steamy solitude. I opened the door and stepped in, and immediately was greeted by a swath of moisture and heat. The room smelled like old pool water, and as I breathed in, the air felt thick in my throat. There were stone benches up another 2 of the 4 walls of the room, and the floor and the walls were an earthy-colored tile. Steam swirled all around me as I made my way over to one of the benches and sat down, my whole body already slick with sweat and water. I felt my thighs slide against the moist stone beneath me. I jumped as a loud crashing sound suddenly echoed in the room. I looked up at the source of the noise to see steam pouring out of a vent up high close to the ceiling. I realized it was just whatever kind of machinery they had next to the room that must generate the steam, and settled back against the wall. I closed my eyes for a little while, letting myself relax and thinking about how nice, albeit slightly gross, it all felt. Every inch of my body was very much drenched, and it had only been maybe a minute or two. While the thickness of the air had been off-putting at first, I was quickly growing to like how it felt as I breathed. More, even, if that makes sense. I really was rather enjoying myself until I felt something glide along my thigh, ever so slightly, and my eyes shot open. I couldn't see anything. I immediately looked to my left and right. I hadn't heard anyone enter or leave the room, but maybe somebody had? Yet, as I looked around, I saw no one. The steam was pretty much a swirling white haze at that point, and it was nearly impossible to see a foot in front of me. I couldn't make out any figures within the room at all, and when I called out a quick greeting, there was no reply, just my voice and the steam that still billowed out of the vents above me. Was it supposed to stay on that long? As soon as I had the thought, there was another loud clang, and the steam stopped. I let out a deep sigh, trying to ease myself back against the wall. I was imagining things. I had to be. It must have just been a set of moisture droplets running down my thigh is all. That must have been what I felt. Except something felt wrong. I couldn't quite place it, but I honestly had the deepest sensation that I wasn't alone in that room. I had half a mind to just leave at that point. It had felt nice at first, but I was beginning to feel weird. When I tried, though, it almost was like my brain and body were disconnected, and I was rooted to the bench. I just couldn't move. And then I felt it again, only this time it was ever so slight on the back of my neck. And then it started on my right arm, much less subtle this time, and I knew it wasn't moisture droplets dropping onto my skin, primarily because droplets trickle down, and this, whatever it was going up my arm. I wanted to let out a scream, wanted to jump up and run out of there as fast as I could, slippery floor be damned, but I still couldn't move. I couldn't even turn my neck to get a look at what exactly I was feeling. I could only make out what little I could see through the steam from my peripheral vision, which I'm honestly kind of glad now that I couldn't get a better look at whatever it was. I could make out some kind of darkness, some kind of vague mound of shadows, and when I directed my gaze down at my arm, I felt my stomach do a flip. Slimy, black tendrils slithered up my arm. They were thin and stringy looking as they glided even further up my shoulder with ease. They felt moist and radiated heat. It wasn't until I felt them slowly wrapping and tightening around my neck that I started to truly process what was happening. My heart was pounding. I was frozen, my body entirely unresponsive to the commands my mind was screaming at it. And in that moment, I thought I was going to die as my vision began to darken. And then it all went away in an instant as the door swung open and the loud voices cut into the silence of the steam. My arm jerked, and just like that, my limbs were back in action, and I could move. I looked over to see a couple had walked in, chatting about something cheerful and barely noticing me sitting there. The steam was no longer so thick, and as my mind caught up with everything happening, I quickly snapped my head to my right and saw nothing. My heart was still pounding, my throat felt tight, and my legs were feeling like jelly. I got up as quickly as they'd allow me to, without slipping and falling, and made my way unsteadily to the door, the couple still absent-mindedly chattering with one another and not even looking my way. The rest of my time at the gym that night was a blur. I didn't shower there like usual, electing to throw my clothes on quick and shower at home instead. I'd gotten some weird looks from the staff members at the front desk as I made my way out, but honestly didn't care how I looked in that moment. I just wanted to get away. I made it back to my apartment safely, thankfully, and I remember sitting down in my shower and letting the cold water cascade down me. I absolutely did not want anything warm or hot or steamy. I've taken a lot of cold showers since then. Call me crazy, but I actually plan on going back to the gym once I start feeling a little better. Well, a little more sane, I guess. If I even can, which writing this all out for others to read kinda helps. The membership wasn't exactly cheap or refundable, and I do need some sort of physical work, since my job is just hours on hours of sitting and staring at screens. I don't plan on going anywhere near the steam room again, though. In fact, I think I'm going to avoid the entire spa and pool area altogether from now on. If I ever stupidly get the desire to go back in there, all I have to do to remind myself is to look in the mirror and follow the pale red marks that slither their way up my arm and around my neck. Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining me for tonight's story. If you think you might be able to handle just one more creepy tale, go ahead and click on one of the stories you can doubtlessly see appearing at the end of this one. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button too. Maybe hit that bell so you don't miss any of the spooky things that we do here. If, like so many of my patrons, you decide you'd like to get your spooky a little bit earlier, why not come on down to Patreon and have a look at some of the great tiers that I have. My $5 tiers get their spooky a little early, and they have their name read out at the end of every TikTok and every YouTube video that I make. If you'd like a copy of my latest book, there's a link below to my Amazon profile. I've got many books. I'm sure you'll find one that'll suit you there. I always recommend Stragview Stories, as it's the one I'm the most proud of. It contains a large collection of prison horror stories out of Stragview, the prison that I've made in the Georgia hills. So, if you'd like to have a look, come on down. Before we go, let's go ahead and thank our patrons. Thanks to Janet for being our Spooky Skeleton tier contributor, and thanks to Winter, Xaronan, Emily Coltsfoot, Stephanie Carrington, Marianne Schuler, Tyler Parker, and Jennifer Damron for being my Ghostly Reader tier contributors. Thanks, everyone. We just couldn't do the show without you. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.